Mendez is here, Sledge is here, Toombs is here, and Welch is here. So we do have a quorum. We just have a few items on our agenda. The first one is RS 2022-1696. Sponsors are Spilova, Gamble, Parker, and others. Do one of you want to speak on this? Okay. This appropriates $25 million in the American Rescue Plan funds from Fund Number 30216 to the Metropolitan Development Housing Authority to provide low-cost loans for developers for the addition of deeply affordable housing units, with loan proceeds to be used to address affordable housing and homeless services. Councilmember Allen? Okay. Where? I'm sorry, I just got to find you. Here.
Thank you. So I'm also a sponsor, so I just was going to move approval, and also note that I understand there is an amendment that would add monitoring requirements and accountability measures that were discussed at length last week. And also to say I have a better understanding of this now. It's still somewhat complicated funding, but I appreciate the information that was available to those of us that attended the meeting last week on what gap financing is. And if people have questions, I would encourage them to ask the experts that we have over here in the corner.
Right. Okay, just a minute, Sandra. Recognizes Councilmember Sandra Sepulveda.
Yes, sorry, I just wanted to make sure y'all knew I was here. I'm the lead sponsor. I just wanted to go ahead and move the legislation so we could hear it on the floor, and then we could go into discussing the substitutes.
Second.
So I'm a little, yes, ask again what your request, please.
Motion to
oh, I didn't hear the motion. Okay.
To hear the
yes,
bill.
There's been a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Yes, there's a second. Any discussion? Okay. Yes, Councilmember Mendez. Just a minute.
So I guess I'm moving Councilmember Johnson's substitute. Excuse me.
I'm seconding.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to offer a couple of comments on this because some of the items in this amendment are ones I submit. I know Councilmember Johnson's not here for committee. Oh, hey, look at that. Then I'm going to put my mic down and allow her to take over at this point.
Okay, thank you so much. So this is the substitute for 1696 we're discussing, I'm assuming? Okay, perfect. Sorry for being late. So there were several concerns about the loan program for the $25 million that I heard from multiple council members. And so we had a meeting on Friday with interested parties, and I think what we came up with was a balance between what the intent was, what we wanted to see out of it, and what was agreeable to the administration and to MDHA. So there was a push to actually take every bit of the forgivability of these loans completely out. That apparently was a deal breaker, which is alarming a little bit. But we decided to say, okay, the vast majority of this still needs to be a loan program. What was presented to us was a loan program where the return on investment, the proceeds of the loan, would come back to us as a sustainable revenue source for continued investment into affordable housing. And so that's what we want that money to be. If it's supposed to be a loan program with a dedicated revenue source, then that's what it needs to be. So we limited the forgivability to only $5 million of the $25 million. The other problem that people had was this ambiguity around the affordability period. Barnes Fund is 30 years, period. Understanding that Barnes Fund is 30 years, and those are grants, it made sense to me that if you have a loan that you're having to repay, that the balance of that could be a lesser affordability period. So that did make sense to me. So what I put in there was the affordability period for those loans that are forgiven are a minimum of 30 years, because if it's a grant or a forgiven loan, it needs to match what Barnes Fund demands as well. Everything else is a minimum of 20 years affordability, depending on the different project. The other issue that people had was with the administrative fee, which every other allocation that we have made has been limited to 5% of, for example, with Pathway Lending, what they lent out. The way that the original resolution read, it was just a $1.25 million allocation out of the $25 million for the administrative fees, which would be fine if every bit of it was loaned out. But if every bit of it is not loaned out, you don't want it to not be the 5%. That was a little bit of a deal breaker too, because I originally said it needs to be 5% of what's loaned out. That was a deal breaker because it was told to me that, well, we have a lot of startup costs. Well, my question to that is, and I finally said, okay, what they decided was up to 20% of that 5% of that 1.25 could go to their startup costs. But I do have some questions about if this program is something that fits well into what MDHA already does, why are we having to spend up to $250,000 to get the program started? That's just a hanging question that I have out there. But it is in the resolution that allows them up to that amount for their administrative fees to get the program started, and then 5% for loans that are issued thereafter. There were some reporting and accountability aspects within it as well, just like any other allocation that has come out of the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee. We always have very robust reporting and accountability features, so we added that in there. And then also we wanted to codify what was in the question and answer portion of our council questions, and then how they answered that. We wanted to just codify that instead of it having as an exhibit, to really codify it in the resolution, that's part of what the intent of this program is to be. So I think I've covered everything off the cuff, but I'm open to questions.
Yes, Councilmember O'Connell. Sorry, they're not
Great.
in order.
No, you got me. Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, thank you for recognizing me. I know I'm not on the committee, but as a just recently former member of the Homelessness Planning Council and working on this for a long time, I do want to call people's attention to the fact that as filed, this resolution and its exhibits really did not have any of the policy. The policy seems to have been developed more in depth in what we received back as a Q&A, but that is codified nowhere else. So I do appreciate the administration, everybody who worked on this, allowing us to get that in there. I think this actually does move in the direction of policy, and I think without this amendment, council members should be appropriately concerned about risk and just thinking about the scale of how we've done this. This is on the order of how much money, public money, we committed to the soccer stadium, where we had incredible amounts of just kind of inquisitive and improvement-based approaches to getting that deal across the finish line. And so I think it is appropriate that council members had a lot of questions, that we've done a lot of work on this, and encourage colleagues to support this substitute. Thanks.
Thank you. Does the administration want to make any comments in regards to the substitute?
admin table. There you go.
I think Councilmember Johnston covered it quite well. I guess the only reason that it's technically a substitute is there is a change in one word to the caption, changing authority to agency, which makes it a substitute technically. But otherwise, I think she captured everything, and want to express our appreciation to her for her long work over the weekend for this. So thank you.
Time down.
I'm sorry, do you have anything else? You're done. I just didn't want to cut you off of that, Blair. Okay, do we have a motion to, on the substitute?
You have it.
Okay. Councilmember Johnson, would you like to move this forward?
I'm happy to move it. Yes, please.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? The motion passes.
Substitute.
And we have a second substitute. Councilmember O'Connell, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to say again, appreciations to everybody, including Councilmember Johnson specifically, and also a special shout out to Hannah Zeitlin, who I know was probably very busy through the weekend, and council office staff for working on this, not to mention the administration and stakeholders on that piece. However, as Councilmember Allen noted at the outset here, this gap financing model is particularly complicated, and per the recommendations of the Affordable Housing Task Force earlier in the year, the Barnes Fund is still waiting on that second pool of $15 million. We know that the Barnes Fund can accept applications for projects that are going to target the 0 to 30% AMI range. We know that the Barnes Fund can do permanent supportive housing projects among the not-for-profit development community. In fact, they have processed an application of that sort already. So I think as we consider this entire package of options, a couple things we should take a look at. One, we are underway, under construction right now with a permanent supportive housing project produced by Metro, basically self-developed by Metro. That's producing approximately 90 units of permanent supportive housing. We have watched the not-for-profit sector come in a couple of instances without any subsidy and just relying on their independent status, and watched not-for-profits come in with applications for permanent supportive housing. We have not seen any for-profit developers come in. There have been plenty that have said we're going to do voluntary workforce. There have been plenty that have done contributions to things like community development corporations. There have been for-profit developers that have worked in the affordable housing space. I can't say that I've had a conversation over the past 7 years and working on all parts of the housing spectrum where a for-profit developer has come to me and said, you know what I'd really like to do is incorporate some permanent supportive housing in my project, but for gap financing. I hope that that financing exists. To me, this strikes me as a pilot more than a policy framework that we would want to invest this much money in. I know that the Barnes Fund can deliver quickly, and if we are indexing across all this, I think the thing that I'm still struck by is this is a math problem. We want to make sure we are optimizing this $25 million for urgency of need, cost of construction, term of affordability, speed of delivery, and probably location and type. And I do worry again that the for-profit community is not going to be targeting locations or housing types that are ideal for permanent supportive housing residents, including transit access, location within a project, just small little details, not to mention the fact that for-profit developers often try to sell those projects. So there are a lot of concerns I still have, even with the improvements and the substitutes that's already been approved. And I would encourage colleagues to consider this, and I'm open to the discussion here, but I think it's worth having this conversation on the floor as well and making sure that we are getting the math right on allocating these funds. Thank you.
Councilmember Sledge.
Thank you, Chair. So I want to say thank you to everybody who has worked on these substitutes over the last several days. And I like the content of both of them, quite frankly. For the purpose of discussing this substitute, I guess my kind of decision point on this one would depend on what we're doing regarding the Barnes Fund. As the sponsor noted, there's still $15 million that we haven't put in to meet our $30 million goal from the Affordable Housing Task Force and what we did this past fiscal year. So I guess it's an administrative question about what is the plan to put the other $15 million in for this fiscal year? Because my supposition would be that it has to come from ARP, but I don't know that, so I'm trying to find that out. That's a question for the administration.
Question, who was the question for, sir?
The administration as to the plan for the $15 million for Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will do my best and then defer to the much smarter person to my right. I think this discussion emerged with respect to a previous ordinance on the MCC pilot allocations, and that got deferred 2 meetings, so I know we're still in discussions on the remaining Barnes Fund funding. The $15 million was approved by the council in its most recent budget ordinance. And the administration is thankful for that, because the Barnes Fund was really the first effective tool that we dedicated towards affordable housing. When it was first created, I think we put about $250,000 in it, and we're now at $47 million. So there's progress there. In addition to the $15 million, the council knows that there are several directed revenue sources that allocate towards the Barnes Fund. The 1/6 of the transient occupancy tax that includes the short-term rental funds goes to the Barnes Fund. The proceeds from the sale of delinquent taxes goes to the Barnes Fund. Matching funds for any ECD grants goes to the Barnes Fund. The proposed ordinance that would direct the $14.3 million that we get annually from the convention center goes to the Barnes Fund. And under the resolutions you have before you now, the surplus funds would be submitted to the Barnes Fund. What I don't yet have and hope to have before the ordinance I talked about earlier comes up is what have those revenue streams generated so far this fiscal year. It's early and I may not get those numbers, but I hope to, so we can inform this discussion as to what else is coming. In the meantime, I know the Housing Division has commissioned a resource analysis, because there has been some discussion among the experts, if you will, the Affordable Housing Task Force, the chair of the Affordable Housing Task Force, are stating that they need more tools in the toolkit than just the Barnes Fund. And does it make sense to allocate funding, available funding across several tools, or simply direct through the Barnes Fund? And I know they are having that discussion, and will have, I think, a recommendation through the resource analysis to inform our next budget. In the meantime, we've allocated the largest amounts ever in the history of the Barnes Fund. And with that, if I can turn it over to Angie Hubbard and get a better answer.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay with this on? All right. So the Affordable Housing Task Force, of which I was a member of, released its report in June of 2021. Since then, the city has allocated $47.5 million to the Barnes Fund. There was, I think, $12.5 million in the FY22 budget, $20 million of year one ARP money, and $15 million in the FY23. We just finished the funding round for for the $20 million ARP. That's to come before you in November. So we're still to put out the FY23 funding allocation. We're looking toward winter or early spring to revamp that, to let you know where we are. And yes, we have great nonprofits that are lined up to utilize this money. What I really hate to get into is an either-or situation. The Barnes Fund is a phenomenal tool. As you all know, it does produce. In its 9 years of history of over 3,000 rental units created, only 10% have gone to 0 to 30. And then our first PSH, true PSH with coordinated entry and housing Housing First actually came in this last round for 20 million. We've actually had bonus points in the Barnes Fund allocation since at least 2017, and we're still not getting there with the 0 to 30. So the task force, if you look at it in its totality, does recommend a number of tools that are and because just like I think I said this last week, building a house takes more than one tool. Building a room takes different tools than building your bathroom takes a different tool than building your bedroom. Same thing here, and we're not getting at the intentionality of the 0 to 30 or permanent supportive housing, but really through this particular focus.
Thank you. I do want to just repeat my question. What is the plan to put the additional 15 million in for fiscal year 23, this current fiscal year?
Again, I don't yet have the numbers. This conversation came up under the MCC pilot. That got deferred 2 meetings. I think that comes up at the end of October. What I hope to have before then are what are the actual resource streams that we're seeing through those dedicated funds. So I think that's part of it. I don't yet have the answer, and may not, from the resource analysis study that has been commissioned by the Housing Division to make a recommendation as to how that should be funded going forward. And until I have those, that's the extent of the information I have.
Thank you. I'd like to check with Mrs. Eiland. Ms. Eiland, in your analysis, you said after the 4 bills that we've got before us, how much money is remaining in the ARP funds?
Oh, I don't know that I have that number in front of me. Give me 1 second.
That's okay. In the time that Ms. Eiland's looking at that, I do want to note that I'm a little concerned about what I consider to be sort of revisions to the Affordable Housing Task Force's report. And to continue the analogy, to build a house, you first have to have a foundation. And the foundation of our affordable housing work is in the Barnes Fund. And the Affordable Housing Task Force very clearly states that it recommends $30 million a year to go to the Barnes Fund. So as I consider these substitutes, and I understand that we have put $15 million in a general operating fund that will go toward a winter or spring round.
There's a 30 million.
That means we are 15 million to get to the 30 million that is recommended by the Affordable Housing Task Force. And I'm really excited about the funding round that's coming for the Barnes Fund that was mentioned in November, because it does have PSH for the first time. And that's what happens when we fully fund the Barnes Fund. We get a diversity of product types and applications that we've never seen before. So as I consider this substitute that would get us to $30 million, I have to think to myself, am I going to get another opportunity to vote to get us to $30 million before the end of this fiscal year? So I understand that we don't know that right now, but that's what has to weigh in my decision making. Ms. Eiland, if you've got the numbers.
If I could, just 1 moment. What hasn't come before you, because it hasn't come through COVID Oversight Committee yet, is the Housing Division's request for $30 million for the affordable housing ARP year 2. In our proposal, we do have some of the initiatives that we are proposing to come through the Barnes Fund as the vehicle for that. So that would be the discussion for that.
But Director, my understanding is that's not funding to the Barnes Fund, though. Is that correct?
We are happy to reconsider that through that conversation.
Thank you.
May I ask the administration a question, please? One has to do with timing. I know from my other life in which I do work with a agency that provides affordable housing. The Barnes Fund usually takes a couple of years before we submit it and get approval and dig the first dirt. And I think this proposal of Resolution 1696 is to get dirt dug before the end of the year. Is that correct?
I might quibble slightly with the dirt dug, because the intent here is to be able to latch on, if you will, to existing developments, those for which the dirt has already been dug. And that is one of the intended advantages of this approach, where we can hopefully see allocated units within 6 months, as opposed to the 2 years you referenced.
So if we did divert this money to the Barnes Fund, we would be adding a time frame before those units would be built, possibly. Is that correct? Okay. Are there any other comments about this particular substitute?
I just want to say that the question about, for-profit builders actually using this for those of us that made it through to the very end of the information session last week, there was a for-profit developer who was at the back, another one at the front, who both said absolutely this kind of housing would help us to add the 30% component to stuff that we've already got in the works. So those people are out there, and they were here to speak on the fact that this would provide something that they don't have to use as a tool now that would absolutely make the difference to add that 30% permanent supported housing component to projects that they've already got in the works in the pipeline.
And would you clarify this? Is this the loan or is this the barn fund?
Good question. The $25 million gap financing, they said being able to access that loan would enable us to expand what we're doing to include 30% AMI housing.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions about the substitute? Just a moment. You got it, Stefan.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to start by, commending and thanking everyone that worked on this. I think having so many tools is a good thing. But I do want to clarify something. I think the idea that this money will produce immediately is misleading. When you read the substitute that we just approved, it did say that the money should be allocated before December 2023, but to be completed and expended by December 2025. So that is not an immediate thing. And if we're going to use that argument as why bonds take time, I just want to clarify that. That is misleading. This would take time too. It might take time. So I want to clarify that. In terms of supporting bonds fund, of course, I'm on the Housing Commission. I support everything that goes to bonds. And I think if we can get, I like the idea that we said some more money is coming. If we can get a clarification as to how much we have already that we've allocated that will go to bonds this year, as much as the one that you have, I think it will allow a lot of us to be able to say, let's use other tools while we're not taking away from bonds. I think that's what we're trying to ascertain here. So if we can get that question answered, at least get us to 10, 15 million, 10, 12 million, I think it will allow someone like myself to say, okay, we really do not need this amendment at all. But I cannot say that in good conscience if I don't know that this will not take money away from bonds fund. Thank you.
Right. We know, for example, that the hotel occupancy tax is exploding compared to previous years that were no doubt COVID influenced, but exactly what 1/6 of that calculation is, we just don't have that yet, but hope to have that before the next ordinance.
Are there any other comments in regards to the second substitute?
We still need to answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dollar figure, do you
Yeah, who's going to do that?
I can answer. Councilmember Sledge, the amount remaining would be $80 million after this $50 million was appropriated. That was the question. And we don't have a motion on this substitute at this point.
Councilmember Sepulveda.
Thank you. Regarding the ARP committee, just as an FYI, we don't have a lot of money left, right? So if we're talking about funding the Barnes Fund, it might be easier if that comes out of the 25 million than going back to the ARP committee, because some committee members have stated that we have done enough for affordable housing. While I may vote for it, that doesn't mean the entire committee will. So it's not something that is ever guaranteed. I don't pretend to speak for the entire committee, but that's just an observation I have. But with that being said, I'll move Councilmember O'Connell's substitute for a vote.
We have a second. All in favor?
Do you want to ask for any further discussion?
I'm sorry.
For further discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there further discussion in regards to this? Yes, Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the fact that the Barnes Fund has been such a robust tool in our tool chest, and Councilmember Swarr and I both served on the Affordable Housing Task Force, and you know, so much of the tools that we talked about, we got to the end of, and we just need money to do them. And there were a lot of innovative tools that we talked about. So it's interesting that we've got this revolving fund that may perpetuate itself for years and years and years after we're done with this, and that's an interesting thing. I think we're all interested in bang for our buck. I don't know if anyone, just off the top of your head, can say how far does $15 million go if we are allocating it through the Barnes Fund per unit as opposed to being used in the gap financing to make these 30%. Is there anybody that can address that?
I can say, based on experience with the Barnes Fund, it leverages its dollars recently about 10 to 1. We are seeing that leverage go down because of cost escalations and the ability of developers to take on conventional debt. And as you think about 0 to 30 and permanent supportive housing, the amount of the subsidy is typically higher than a traditional up to 60%, which is how high Barnes goes on a rental, because it really just takes that deeper subsidy to make the deal work. So that, I would imagine we would probably see that come in about 6 to 1. How many units? Let me grab my phone and a calculator because I don't have that in front of me, but maybe the administration or someone behind me can answer how many units are anticipated through the GAP financing program. Give a calculator.
Email Alexander, Director of Community Development at MDHA. We're projecting up to 120 units through the GAP financing program, and we're basing this on an estimate of about $200,000 per unit.
Any additional discussion?
That's Scobey about what we would carry. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. My recollection from the Affordable Housing Task Force is the $30 million for Barnes was to produce something like 1,200 to 1,500 units. So if you go on the low end of that, 15 million would produce 600 units.
So we, with our 20 million of ARP dollars, I believe we're coming before you at around 700 units. Again, the task force was at a time before we saw the cost escalations and the interest rate increase, which will certainly impact the ability of, we'll see nonprofits come in for grants more than they will go out for the traditional financing mechanisms. And so we did see that lower with what will come before you later this month or early next month.
And may I ask a question of the council? If we were to approve the second substitute, that overrides the first substitute we've already approved. Is that correct?
At the committee, that's not a question. Both substitutes can be approved at the committee, and when we get to the floor, if the second substitute were to pass, then it would essentially amend the first. Excuse me. I think it would override the first substitute.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, O'Connell.
Thank you. I think this is good because we're getting down to the math, and I think if we look at self-developing on public land, which we have plenty of close to areas that make a lot of sense for delivery of PSH units, I mean, there our benchmark seems to be about 90. For the full 25 million, as I understand it, if we went full gap financing, we could get up to 120 units, and then if we look at Barnes on the basis of the 15 million, if I'm hearing what I heard from Director Hubbard and Councilmember Sledge, then we would be looking at potentially as many as 600 units on those rough spectrums. We obviously know that permanent supportive housing units are going to come with a service model operating cost that's going to be higher than a traditional housing unit, and that should definitely be factored in. And so certainly not all of those Barnes units would be PSH, but I do want to go back to the point about either or here. To me, this is actually more of a both and. It lets us pilot the affordable housing gap financing model while also making whole the high priority recommendation from the Affordable Housing Task Force that Barnes get to a point where we can fund it $30 million each fiscal year. So thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions?
Sure.
I would like to clarify, because we just saw our first PSH, and I don't have that information on how much per unit that is costing to really figure out where the 0 to 30 and PSH are. The 600 is about what we're seeing at 60% of the AMI. So I don't have the information in front of me of what we would yield at 0 to 30, but it would be less because we would be coming in with a higher subsidy per unit.
Right.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask if it would be possible to get some numbers by tomorrow night.
Thank you. So are we ready for a vote on the second substitute? All those in favor? All those opposed? Opposed? Any abstain? Okay, thank you. We'll now go on to RS 2020.
We need to ask for approval of the...
Oh, the bill as substitute. Well, how do we do that if there's two substitutes?
You just...
Okay. All in favor of the bill as substituted with both the substitutes? I mean, that doesn't seem right. So we're voting for the bill and both substitutes, it appears. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Okay. All right, now we will go on to the second item, RS 2022-1697. This appropriates $9 million in the American Rescue Plan Act funds from Fund Number 30216 to Metro Homeless Impact Division of Metro Social Services to build capacity in housing first case management services, including establishing assertive community treatment teams. And there is an amendment by Councilmember Johnston.
Yep. Okay. So this is actually just a very simple amendment that's requiring some reporting and accountability. I also, not for this one, yeah. So this is just reporting and accountability of the number of people that have been served by the program, the demographics, the average length of time, and the income and non-cash benefits. There was an estimated 500 individuals or households to be serviced by this particular one, so I wanted to have a defined deliverable as well as the reporting and accountability. So that's all this does. And these were numbers that were given by whomever came up with this, not me. I didn't come up with 500 is what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? would you like to move your?
It's already been.
I'm not in the committee, so I don't think I can move it.
Oh, I didn't hear him. Okay, great. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? The motion approved. I'm sorry. Okay, now the bill is ready to be moved as amended. Is there any discussion? Yes.
I just wanted to check whether RS 2022-1787 relates to this one or the next one.
Say that again. What was your question?
There's RS 2022-1787.
No, we're looking at 1697.
My question is right, thank you. So which one does it relate to? Okay. It does relate to one of them, so I'm trying to figure out which one I need to discuss it under. 1698. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or discussion? So do we wish to move
It's already been moved.
the bill as substituted or as amended?
It's already been moved, just call for the vote.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? The amendment moves forward. Okay, our next item is RS 2022-1698. This appropriates $9 million in the American Rescue Plan Act funds from Fund Number 30216 to Metro Homeless Impact Division of Metro Social Services for temporary interim gap housing. Sandra, do you wish to speak to this?
I think we heard it all at the work session. I'll move the bill so we could hear it on the floor.
Okay, thank you. We have two amendments. The first one is from Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you. So again, adding some reporting accountability and some defined deliverables. I also wanted to specify a certain amount of money to go towards our rapid rehousing facility that we have at 95 Wallace Road. While it says temporary gap, temporary gap housing or whatever, they said, well, we can pay for this and we can pay for that, but I wanted to make sure that 100% that was communicated in the language of the resolution, that is the intent for part of this money to go towards security at that facility. And so it got very specific into the number of households that we plan to service with not only the mobile housing navigation, but also the single room housing at 95 Wallace Road, which is 500 to 600, and then 400 respectively. Requiring protective services at the mobile housing navigation for 14 hours a day and 24 hours per day at 95 Wallace Road, including physical security barriers, and then support services is at both. And if there's a question of why 14 hours on one and 24 hours on the other, the mobile housing navigation units are typically servicing roughly 6 to 8 people. It's a very, very small amount. It's very large at 95 Wallace Road, and at full capacity will be over 100 people, and so it's necessary to have that 24-hour security there. And then again, just reporting and accountability requirements, just like we've done with every other allocation that's come out of the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments in regards to Councilmember Johnston's amendment? Councilmember Suarez.
Thank you, Chair. My question, I'm looking at the budget attached to the amendment, and it indicated that we'll be spending about $3 million on services, salaries, and then the security is about $2 million, but we're only spending on the rent $1.2 million. And I just wanted to check that math. It looks as if we're spending more on not putting people in homes than we're spending on services. So I just wanted to clarify that. If we're only spending 1.2 million on where we will house people, and the bulk of the money is going to security, that math doesn't look right to me. So I would think something like this, our focus would be more on housing the folks. And so I just want someone to explain that budget.
I can speak to that.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So the rent or the vouchers that go to the rent for this, the actual housing, there's a set number of rooms there at the 95 Wallace Road location. It was an old roadway inn, so it's an old motel. It's $1,100 per unit, so that's a set amount. The supportive services would go through Salvation Army. It's going to have case managers, obviously the wraparound services, property manager, to make sure that those folks are being serviced the way that they should, and then the security is a separate aspect. So when you say we're spending more on the supportive services and security than the actual rent, that rent is basically a set amount because it's $1,100 per month per unit.
So we're not able to increase the number of people that we can put in there? We're using all the units that
No, they can have couples in there, but those are not for families. Those are technically efficiencies, which is where the $1,100 market rate comes from. And so it's just $1,100 per unit, and you can have one person or a couple live in there. So could you have, let's say it's 100 units, could you have theoretically 200 people living there because they're all couples? Yes, but there's only a set number of units in that development.
So, thank you. Yeah. Do we look into another property not far from that can house more people and use the same security? I'm just looking into how we can optimize the number of people that we're helping rather than the services, the security services needed. But you can have a security service monitoring two properties not far from each other.
I'll let April handle that. I know that there's not another development that's near there that's interested in doing this. So as far as expanding, no, but.
Yeah, I'll say Councilmember Johnson's done her homework, so thank you for that. The units right now, it's not at full capacity. We're not able to use it at full capacity. So being able to bring on security and support services will allow us to have the access to the full 120 units instead of just 70 or 75. And currently, if we were to expand to another hotel, then that would mean extra security, extra support services at that location as well. So I think that using the one location at max capacity will get us the numbers served that we projected.
Thank you.
So, Councilman Suarez, I just want to expand on that. We started off using the entire 120 units, and because the crime got so bad over there were our partner nonprofits that stopped bringing their clients there because it wasn't safe. And so now we are not utilizing that development as much as all of the units. We're not utilizing all of them. So if we can provide security, make it a safe place for not only our nonprofit providers, but the people that are living there, we can go back to max capacity. So we are actually bringing more units online by making it safe.
One more thing to add to that as well. Currently, they're using ESG federal funds to supplement that rent. So these funds would be used on the tail end of the ESG. So it's like leveraging and braiding the funds as well.
Okay. Thank you. May I? Thank you. The other question that I have is that in RS 2022-1697, which is the one that we're giving to the Metro Homeless Impact Division, there's a lot of funding for services and people that will be helping. What's the difference between those additional specialists that we're bringing on with 1697 and the one in 1698?
Would the administration like to answer that?
So I believe the 1697 is the housing first support services, and then 1698 is the interim gap housing. So one is the housing, the other one is providing ongoing support services across Davidson County for those that were homeless or formerly homeless.
That answers your question. Any other questions? We would like to have a motion for the amendment. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? The motion passes. We have a second amendment by Councilmember Toombs. Would Councilmember Toombs like to speak to her amendment?
Thank you, Chair. My amendment was just for informational purposes, and looking at Councilwoman Johnston's amendment, I think it pulls out the key points from the draft plan that the Shelter Committee came up with. So I'm not going to move forward with my amendment because I think it's addressed in Councilwoman Johnston's amendment. I just want to clarify that with Ms. Calvin.
That's correct.
Okay.
So
I'm
you're
not gonna
pulling
move
it,
forward.
right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So do we, all in favor of passing RS 2022-1698 as amended? Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? It passes as amended. Thank you. Our next item on the calendar is RS 2022-1699. This is appropriates $7 million in the American Rescue Plan from Fund 30216 to the Metro Homeless Impact Division of Social Services to establish a low-barrier housing collective and to fund competitive grants and supportive services. Councilmember Sepulveda, would you like to speak to this?
I'll just move the legislation.
Okay. There is one amendment to this. Councilmember Johnston.
Sticking with my theme of reporting and accountability and defined deliverables, that's exactly what this is. So we were given a number of 300 households as a target, and then just again, just reporting features for demographics, all that fun stuff. So it's the same as previous.
Are there any questions in regarding this? Councilmember Sepulveda. So far.
Looking at the fiscal analysis, it says that $4 million will be for competitive grants and $3 million will be for 2 navigators and 1 manager. I know there's someone from MDHA here. So the $3 million is salary for 3 people for how long?
So the $3 million is not just for the staff, although my staff would love that, right? But the $3 million is for landlord incentives, sign-on bonus, minor repairs just to bring units on, also furniture. There's a lot of social service providers that connect people to housing and don't even have a bed to provide them. So there's a lot that's kind of chalked into that. It's not just for staffing.
Thank you. Are there any further questions in regards to this? We need a motion on the amendment, please, to move it forward. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes as amended. And our last item on our calendar today is RS 2022-1787. This approves a grant from the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County and the Community Care Fellowship to operate an expanded mobile housing navigation center program. Did I hear someone say a motion to approve? Yes. Second? Any questions? Yes, Sofat, you're on.
I promise that I won't do this in budget since we've done it here. I just want, for this one, I'm looking at the fiscal analysis as well. And in the analysis, there is the contract that was drawn up for this. And at the very last page of the contract, there is a grant spending plan. All right, and in the same trend as the gap housing that we were doing, and I know a lot of thought has gone into this. A lot of people plan this and they know how it works. But for the sake of the viewing audience and anybody looking at these numbers, would someone explain how this works? Supposed to provide additional mobile bed, but the occupancy that I see here is only 360, and the rest of the 4 million is all salaries. And I'm just trying to again understand that, so.
Was someone from the administration, April?
So currently, there's about 360,000 that goes into operating one of those units. CCF Executive Director Ryan Lasor is in the audience if we need more information. Just want to put that on record. So right now he has two that are up and running, and that one that's coming online within the month. And then going forward, this would increase to 7.
Wow.
No, you're fine.
So this only has one place, then would somebody be coming back for the funding of the 6 additional places? And then would the salaries and expenses increase as the places increase as well?
No, I believe his contract is for all it's all 7. The contract that's in front of you should be for all 7. That 367 was an example of how much it is to run one. So his contract is for all 4. And then it's not, I don't believe it's a direct funding. I think as he moves or occupies those churches and other locations, then that's when the funding will be drawn down at that point.
All right.
Does that answer your question?
I believe it does. So the 4.5 million is the cost of running 7 places, including the occupancy and the salaries.
Yes.
And then we only pay as we bring the money. It's a reimbursement grant.
Yes.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion to move this forward? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. That is the end of our agenda for today. Thank you.